Hello comic fans and welcome to another round of DC vs. Marvel. In this week we have Action Comics number 1, which has a cover date of June 1938, first appearance of Superman, versus The Incredible Hulk number 1, which has a cover date of May 1962. Which one will remain supreme? Which one will be my favorite? Stay tuned for this video of JTTT Comics. I'm going to start with Action Comics number 1, and I'm going to be using the facsimile edition for both of these. And for those of you who aren't aware, facsimiles are the exact reprint of the comics with the exact ads and printing that they used in 1938. It's like you went back in time, pick up these issues. They're a really cool collector item piece, and they will be useful for me in this video. The character of Superman was created by both Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Jerry Siegel being the writer and Joe Shuster being the artist. And they created the character of Superman in order to hopefully to promote him to a newspaper and sell him during newspapers. But the character ended up being so popular to the editor that he ended up making it in his own comic series, Action Comics number 1, which started out as an anthology series. It had a Superman story in it, but it also had other short stories, just like Detective Comics number 1. So it followed this format for a few years until Superman became popular, and then eventually he headlined his own series with just that. Also, on a side note, Zatara appears in this issue, and he is also the father of Zatanna later on. So this Action Comics number 1 is both the first appearance of Superman and Zatara, so it's a double key issue. But mostly people just pick up this issue because it's the first appearance of Superman. But it's a fun fact to note that Zatara did have an appearance in this issue, and he does have a short story. This issue starts out with a brief origin of Superman, and it shows here in the classic lines, leap buildings by single bound, faster than the locomotive, the classic Superman catchphrase that we all know and love. Superman demands to see the governor, and when he doesn't get to see him, we get a bullet to him, and we get a taste of his invincibility for the first time. We get to see Clark Kent here for the first time, the alias of Superman, and we also get to see Perry White, who is the editor of the Daily Planet. We also get a look at Lois Lane for the first time, the love interest of Clark Kent / Superman. And then we get a beautiful panel here from the iconic cover scene of Action Comics number 1, and we get a test of Superman's strength from picking up the car and crashing it into a rock. And in this panel, it shows Superman leaping tall buildings in a single bound, just like it said in the first panel of Action Comics number 1. And that concludes the iconic issue of Action Comics number 1. Superman only appeared in about 12 pages of Action Comics number 1, as the rest of it was an anthology issue, and as they were just testing the character out to see how readers responded to him. And as you can see from the present day, he took off like a locomotive, no pun intended. So he was a really popular character, and he took off, and the iconic issue of Action Comics number 1 is just iconic, and you can read it over and over and over again. Moving on to Marvel, we have The Incredible Hulk number 1, who was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Now, the inspiration of The Incredible Hulk, according to Stan Lee, was the Universal monster movie of Frankenstein, the 1930s film. And Stan Lee would watch that film, and he always would sympathize with Frankenstein, as he didn't really think he was the monster in that movie, and he just thought he was misunderstood. So he used that inspiration, and he used it to create The Incredible Hulk. And the Hulk originally was supposed to be green in this issue, just like Frankenstein, because he wanted him to have the same color. But because of a printing issue, he had to be gray. And as you see as later on, he became green. And this issue opens up with scientists and the military testing on gamma radiation. And we get introduced to General Ross, Bruce Banner, and Betty Ross, the daughter of General Ross. But things change quickly as Dr. Banner has to quickly go and save a civilian who is in the plastic gamma radiation, and he gets blasted himself, and thus we have the creation of the Incredible Hulk, half man, half monster. And then we continue with the issue as the Hulk strikes, and we show a little taste of his action, and then we also have, in the next part of the military searching for Hulk, as Bruce Banner tries to deal with both his Hulk identity and his human identity. And on a side note, maybe Stan Lee got his inspiration from the Hulk from another Universal monster, such as the werewolf, because in this issue, Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk when the sun goes down, and only when the sun goes down, just like how Talbot became the werewolf when the sun came down is in the Universal Monster movie. Interesting fact. And in part 4, we get introduced to a nemesis of the Incredible Hulk, and that is called the Gargoyle. And I find it interesting that he's just like Bruce Banner. He was affected with gamma radiation, so it's like the opposites of the same coin. And at the end, the Gargoyle becomes human again, and ironically, he saves the Hulk and Bruce Banner and Rick Jones from disaster, and then the Hulk escapes to fight another day and continue on his ongoing series. And now for the verdict. Which one do I think is better appearance, the Action Comics #1 or the Incredible Hulk #1? Now, both these issues are iconic, and I like these characters both a lot, the Hulk and Superman. So let's start off with the cover. Now, which cover do I think is the best? That one goes to Action Comics #1. The iconic cover of Superman thrown in a car is hard to beat, so that one wins the cover. Now, which one do I think is the better story? Action Comics #1 or the Incredible Hulk #1? Now, the Action Comic #1 is iconic, and the first appearance of Superman is just iconic all around. But the Incredible Hulk #1 is more fleshed out. It has 5 parts, and it is the whole issue, whereas Action Comics #1 is only the 12 pages. So I'm going to go with which one is the best story as the Incredible Hulk, because he's more fleshed out, and we get to see more of him. So which character's first appearance is more iconic? The Incredible Hulk #1 or Action Comics #1 with Superman? And as though the Incredible Hulk is a cool character and his appearance is iconic in itself, I'm going to have to go with Action Comics #1 as the winner. Because Superman started it all, he was the first superhero, and without him, you wouldn't have anybody else. And though his story is only short, it's still legendary and made such an impact in the industry. So versus Action Comics #1 and the Incredible Hulk #1, our winner goes to Action Comics #1 with Superman. So what do you guys think? Between Superman's first appearance and Hulk's first appearance, which one do you think is better? Do you agree with my pick? Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye. And an interesting piece of information, this past summer I actually visited the home of both Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster in Cleveland, Ohio. That their houses are both there, and it notifies as museums. Although you can't go into their house, there is a nice plaque on the outside notifying that it is their house. And also the Cleveland Library does have a museum dedicated to Superman. So if you're ever in the area, go check it out. I really highly recommend it, and I had a good time seeing it. So here's some pictures of the library and the house of Superman's creators.